ViaSea is one of two major theme parks in Istanbul, Turkey. This park has a solid ride lineup with one of the country's best roller coasters and several crazy flat rides. It also has a nice setting by the water. However, this is arguably the worst operated theme park in the world. See this line here? With just 70 people, it took 1.5 hours, and that is just the tip of the iceberg. So should you ultimately visit this place, find out in this review. Via Development opened two theme parks in the 2010s in Istanbul. First was Vialand. This opened in 2013. It has an awesome setting, built in the heart of the city on a hill. This place also has some theming, and most importantly, a well-rounded ride lineup. The signature attraction is an Intamin launch coaster Nefes Gessen. In 2015, Via Development opened a second park in Istanbul 40 miles southeast. This would be on the Sea of Marmara and part of the Viaport Marina Complex. The theme park has had a few different names throughout its history. The park is most commonly referred to as ViaSea. This is the name currently on the park website. It also is commonly referred to as Viaport Marina Tema Park, and for a brief period, it was known as Korsan Adasi, which translates to Pirate Island. This lines up with a giant ship at the main entrance, but you won't find any other theming in the park. Whereas Vialand feels like a fully fleshed out theme park, ViaSea feels more like a carnival that happens to have a few permanent rides. It is a relatively small and flat park that is densely populated with attractions. Several of the attractions here are portable models, and I would not be surprised if they are frequently swapped out or relocated. Most of the flat rides do have flashy lighting packages at least, much like a fun fair, so this place has a lot of energy in the evening. The arrival experience also reminded me of a carnival. The complex entrance has you walk past a series of pop-up tents selling trinkets and food items. This eventually opens up to a central plaza. Here, you have an aquarium and a giant Ferris wheel that is not part of the theme park. You can access more permanent shops, or as many of you are interested in, the theme park. I had been warned in advance of my visit that Via Development charged way more for foreigners. I witnessed this firsthand at Vialand, where I saw it was 2,500 Turkish lira, or $60 for foreigners. Meanwhile, Turkish citizens pay less than half that. So I purchased a slightly discounted ticket from Klook. I just had to redeem it at the ticket booth and was on my way in less than a minute. I saw ViaSea was priced at 1,000 Turkish lira, or $23 in their website. But I was skeptical they would honor that price in person, so I once again purchased a ticket from Klook. My ticket said to enter the venue directly with the voucher, so I proceeded to the theme park entrance, and they had no clue what to do. So I was sent to the main ticket booth, thinking that would be the end of it. They instead sent me to the aquarium. I thought that was weird, and sure enough, they sent me back to the main ticket booth. I was then sent back to the theme park entrance. They then had to call someone. A few minutes later, I was told to go to this booth at the complex entrance over by the taxi stand. The employee there had no clue what Klook was. They were then on the phone for maybe 20 minutes. Eventually, I was given a paper voucher to enter the park. So the moral of the story is I would be very careful buying a third-party ticket for ViaSea based on my experience. The whole process to enter the park was extremely frustrating and took almost 45 minutes, and it was a sign of the poor operations I would see for the remainder of the night. During that whole ordeal to enter the park, I could not help but notice rides were barely ever cycled. Was the park that empty? It seemed far-fetched that would be the case on a Saturday, so I was worried a lot of attractions may be closed, but nope, every ride was available, so what was going on? Several rides at this park have a mandatory 10 to 12 minute waiting period in between ride cycles. This includes the two major roller coasters and a handful of flat rides. The impacted rides have signs by the main entrance and/or load platform, so guests are not getting angry at the crew. Typically, when you have a long dispatch interval, there's at least a reason that's visible to guests. Maybe the crew is waiting for more riders, annoying but understandable. Sometimes there's a lot of loading and/or unloading procedures. That was not the case here. Sometimes there's low staffing, but nope, all the rides were fully staffed. Or sometimes the staff members are lazy and/or goofing off. Again, not the case here. Staff members would quickly check restraints once the ride was ready to go. The staff members were just standing around waiting for the ride to no longer be locked out, so it was a deliberate decision by the park. I am guessing is for maintenance, power, and/or cost-saving purposes, but it is a major headache for guests, particularly if you visit on a weekend like I did. The park was not slammed, but it wasn't empty either. Their headlining launched roller coaster in Redfire had just 70 people in line, yet this took 1.5 hours. The train seats just 12 riders. One row was empty, reducing it to just 10 riders per cycle. Then with the waiting period in between cycles, it was accommodating just 50 riders per hour. To put that into perspective, that is the ballpark of upcharge attractions like slingshots and sky coasters. The other rides with this policy could accommodate more riders at once, so they were usually 1 to 2 cycle waits, which still worked out to be 15 to 30 minutes with the waiting periods. It was particularly painful if you just missed boarding by one group. Other impacted rides include the family coaster, the drop tower, and the park's frisbee rides. The kiddie rides and some of the portable flats were not impacted by this waiting period at least. Again, I want to make clear it is not the fault of the ride operators. The ones I interacted with were awesome. They were friendly, often hyping guests up for their rides. Then the employees working Redfire were kind enough to attach my GoPro to the mount on the train so I could capture a stabilized reverse POV. I planned to do this on my second ride, but the coaster unfortunately broke down for the remainder of the night once I sat down. I am hoping that was a rare event, but I know a few others who have gone to this park in recent years and found Redfire closed all day for mechanical issues. What's interesting is that Vialand, which again is owned by the same company, does not have this waiting period in between ride cycles. The issue is specific to ViaSea. And before you ask, ViaSea does not have any sort of skip the line pass. Vialand interestingly does, even though the ride queues there were shorter due to how the rides were operated more consistently. One other frustration operationally at ViaSea is that the park hours on the website were wrong. It said the park will be open until 11 p.m. When I arrived, the ticket booth said the park will be open until just 9 p.m. And once again, this was a beautiful summer Saturday. The park ended up keeping the flat rides and kiddie rides open until 10 p.m. The family coaster closed at 9 p.m. Then staff members earlier in the day said Redfire would have had to close its queue early, but again, it broke down, so I don't know how early they would have had to close it. So 2 very important touring tips, particularly if you want to ride Redfire multiple times. 1, if you're able to, try to visit on a weekday. There will be less people in the park, so there will be less people in line. 2, try to arrive at this park right after it opens. If you're lucky, you'll be able to maybe ride Redfire a few times before the queue really backs up. I arrived late in the afternoon. I had only one day in Istanbul, so I did both Vialand and ViaSea in the same day. I decided to start at Vialand because it opened and closed earlier. Had I known about the operations, I probably would have tried to start at ViaSea instead. I believe the Viaport complex is a parking lot, but I had heard driving in Istanbul was chaotic, so I instead leveraged public transit and Ubers to get around. To go between the 2 parks, I took an Uber. There was a lot of traffic, so it took almost 2 hours, but with the favorable exchange rate, this cost just $45. A ride that long, both in terms of mileage and time, would have cost at least double that in the United States. Ubers in Turkey use taxis, but I still recommend booking through the app. It gives you a cost estimate and protection if the taxi driver messes with the meter. It was possible to go between the 2 parks using public transit. I believe this could have been done for less than $10, but due to how far ViaSea is from downtown, it would have taken 2.5 to 3 hours. It also required a combination of 3 to 4 trains and buses, plus a 1-mile walk. Since I was pressed for time, and also had my luggage on me, this was not particularly appealing. One pleasant surprise from an operational standpoint is that ViaSea has lockers by the theme park entrance that are 100% free. I was stunned. Most parks charge at least $10 to $15 for lockers large enough to fit giant backpacks. All the rides have space for you to store your belongings off to the side. An important note if you're visually impaired such as myself. None of the thrill rides here allow glasses, even if you secure them with an athletic strap. This unfortunately is a policy shared by most major rides in Turkey. Now let's run through the ride lineup. The park currently has 5 different roller coasters. The star is Red Fire, an Intamin Blitz coaster. The layout is a clone of iSpeed at Mirabilandia, except the trains are redesigned to have lap bars. This improves the comfort, but I think iSpeed runs a bit faster. That being said, this is still a dynamic layout. The first 3/4 are fast-paced and essentially a greatest hits compilation of Intamin roller coasters. You have a strong LSM launch, some ejector airtime hills, rapid directional changes, and 2 wild barrel rolls. The finale is quite weak though, but I like everything up to that point. Well, except for the pitiful capacity. And if you want to learn more about this ride, I have a full review already published to the channel. The park also has an Intamin family coaster. RCDB calls it Family Coaster, but the website says Nautilus, even though there's no signage in the park saying this. This is a near clone of Mine Train Ulven at Bakken, except the first drop is reprofiled to be less intense. It is a nicely paced ride considering its demographic. The layout has no airtime, but the turns and spirals exert decent positive Gs, so it is a satisfying experience for all ages. Then, there are 3 smaller coasters. Spinning Coaster is a standard SPF spinner. It is a simple figure 8 layout, just with a bad bump in the station, but you can get a decent spin if off balanced. Kids and adults can ride this one. The other 2 coasters are exclusively for kids. Both were fabricated by DAL, a Turkish theme park company. One is a basic oval called Dragon Coaster. The other is called Wooden Coaster, but do not be fooled. This is a steel wacky worm. On that note, this park has plenty of smaller rides for kids. They are sprinkled all throughout the park. Moving on to the adult flat rides, this park has some wild ones. Torpedo is a large booster. This one has some slower revolutions at the start with some airtime, before kicking into high gear. At max speed, you get solid Gs in the downswings, and 1 flip over the top. This one only operates in one direction, but is the park's largest ride not to have that 10-minute waiting period, so it actually ends up being one of the park's highest capacity rides, which is wrong to say about a booster that seats just 8 riders at a time. I think King Loop is the park's most intense flat ride. This is a technical park looping fighter. You get epic hang time over the top on the inversions, and good positive Gs in the downswings. The seats never unlock, which is something the other installations do, but is still crazy as is. Just note the restraints are extremely tight, to the point that it almost feels like it'll cut circulation off from your legs. If you want more airtime-centric frisbee, the park also has one that focuses more on swinging than inverting. This park also has an interesting drop tower, uncreatively named Drop Tower. I'm not sure who manufactured this one or the stats. This one starts with a surprising launch. There's a long pause between the compressed air sounds and the launch. The launch itself does not have a strong kick, but something feels off as you accelerate towards the top. You do not slow down till the last second, so you get a violent and out-of-control ejector airtime pop. Then, you head back to the top for a long pause, giving you ample time to soak up the waterfront view. The following drop and bounces are mild though. If you want even more time to take in the views, ride the Star Flyer. This is a slower installation, but you get a great 360-degree view of the park and nearby marina. Beyond these larger flats, there are a few other staples mixed about the park. There are 2 notable gaps in this park's ride lineup though. 1, there are no dark rides. ViaLand has 2 good ones, so it's unfortunate they did not add one to ViaSea, but that would require theming, which the park has not invested in thus far. 2, there are no water rides. This is more surprising given the climate. I would have expected this park to have a portable log flume at minimum. Beyond the rides, I did not notice any shows. I also cannot speak to the food. I ate prior to my visit, but it mostly looked to be quick service offerings. So, do I recommend this park? Well, I recommend Red Fire. That has a great coaster, so to ride it, you have to go to this park. I think the overall ride lineup is nice, and as I noted, The staff members are very friendly. Everything else could use some work. The park feels very much like a carnival, and the operations are abysmal. The waiting period in between ride cycles will be annoying on a quiet day, and is downright excruciating on a busy day. This is on top of the issues I had entering the park, and the surprise change in hours. If this park could fix its operational issues, I would wholeheartedly recommend this place. But as it is, you need to bring your patience. If you are only going to visit one park while in Istanbul, I strongly recommend Vialand. It has the better overall park in terms of aesthetics, operations, and ride lineup. And it's also located closer to downtown, where all the other main tourist activities are. But if you're a coaster enthusiast like myself, I know you are going to want to ride Red Fire. This review is meant to serve as a warning so you do not get blindsided by the operations like I did. Those are my thoughts on ViaSea, a park that has potential if it were run better. What are your thoughts on this park? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you consider subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.